guys get pumped up by the intro jams?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how to not do that. Because why would we do crazy stupid stuff when instead we could do smart, meaningful, purposeful things, which is what we're all about here on the show. And today, folks, we have a wonderful 2024 year in review, which is why we have an even lovelier panel joining us for our conversation today that is currently missing one person, and maybe he'll come, maybe he won't. We'll see. But regardless, we're going to end up talking about AI. So I do hope that he comes because he's the most knowledgeable one of us in that arena. But we have some wonderful brains that are going to be sharing with you what are some of the things that people, businesses, companies, organizations saw working for them from a marketing point of view in 2024. Where are those things headed in 2025? How can we bring some of these more human-y principles into marketing to have more impact in 2025 and all of those good things? So if you are joining us live, we really encourage you to get into the conversation as well. This isn't a conversation for just us. This is a conversation for all of us. So there's a fancy dancy chat mechanism you should see on your screen. And if there's anything you would like to share, something you experienced, a question that you have for one of the experts, something that you've heard in the market that you're wondering about, please feel free to share it in the comments. We would love to hear your voice as well. So because we want to spend most of our time together here today talking about the good stuff, we're going to do a quick round of intros to everyone in the room, just so you know what type of questions you might want to ask and what type of feedback you're going to get today. So let's do a quick little around the horn to learn who is joining us in the conversation today. Let's start with you, iCare.
Yes, hello, my name is iCare. I'm based in Ottawa. I specialize in data-driven marketing. I lead a company called TravelGrow.ai. We help business establish, their all their marketing strategy related to travel marketing. Wow. And we also include AI in our process. So this is what I specialize in, and this is where I'm based. Thank you.
Exciting. And when I first met iCare, he self-identified as a marketing futurist. So it's going to be fun to have him in the conversation today. Welcome, iCare. It's iCare's first appearance on the show, folks. So round of applause. We threw him right into the deep end on a panel.
Does he have to do the initiation?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the pants dance. I just wanted to say that. That's all.
We have a dance party stuff coming for later, so maybe we'll save it for the end.
All right.
Marie-France.
Yeah. So as you said, my name is Marie-France, and I'm based here in Paris, and I work with women, and I basically help them to build a compelling personal brand so they become magnetic in their niche, and they have clients coming to them instead of them having to chase them, right? So it's more about being compelling and attracting people thanks to your personal brand. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Very good.
And I am likewise passionate about that, which is why Marie-France and I are friends. And with that, let's go to Paul, because I always feel like Paul's personal branding shirts always improve his relationship. So Paul, how about you?
Well, I'm Paul. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and I work with people so that they can have much deeper belonging, which allows them to have deeper well-being and perform much higher levels. And half of that comes through signaling. So, for example, as you can see, I'm wearing a shirt that says, it's a trap, it's a nerd shirt, it's a Star Wars shirt. That's General Akbar right there. However, if I wanted to actually do this right and send the right signals to you, I'd probably be doing something like this as we were talking.
I just want everyone to know that I did not know that.
Wow. I'm impressed, Paul.
And that was great.
Thank you for the trick. Now we know.
So now my signals and my cues and my words would be extending in the belonging that would not have your mind going, WTF?
Or if you're a nerd and you understand the shirts,
Right.
then it also works.
Love
in belonging.
that.
A little bit.
Talking about personal branding, right? That's personal branding. Thank you.
Well, and I'm always a fan of having the belonging conversation matched up with the marketing conversation because our clients are with us. They are part of us. They are not just over there in a profile somewhere. And last but not least, for now anyway, Eric, my friend, Eric, back for I don't know how many times you've been on the show. A lot.
It's been a few, hasn't it? It's been great though. I mean, I always jump to it. I know I let you down once many years ago when I couldn't get I had an internet problem and I couldn't get on. So I do apologize, but I'm here. And I always enjoy being here. I particularly love the opening credits. I think you've done a sterling job on the opening of this show. It's brilliant. So my name is Eric. I'm broadcasting live from Aberdeen, Scotland tonight. It's 8 p.m. It's actually 8:08. That's the length that I go to for Tracy Borison. Everyone's drinking wine next door and having a party, but I'm here where all the fun is.
I mean,
No.
let's not pretend it's going to be any more fun anywhere else. Definitely.
Paul, don't make
All
this
for
any
your
worse. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Absolutely.
It's only
with-
noon for
Or
Paul.
this. We could go with this one too. John,
I'm not fussy. But I like your party style. Startups here in Aberdeen, we work with SMEs, PLCs, startups, and institutions to help them become the leading technical and commercial digital influencers in their space, mainly on social media, but also beyond. And we also work with them on something that I really enjoy, which is business storytelling, to help them craft stories that stick and that actually help them with growing their businesses.
This is so good. And Eric, let's start there with the concept of storytelling, because I feel like there's been more and more conversation around storytelling in 2024. So how have you seen that manifesting for your clients, and where do you see that going?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I'm going to combine two answers here, Tracy, if you don't mind. So this is the 2024 year of review, right? Year in review. So 2024 for me has been the year of the answer, an answer I have been seeking out, walking through the hills of Scotland in the cold, in my kilt, in the rain at night with my crook and my sheep, looking for this answer. And I think I've come across it. It's the answer to the question, why has, and I'm speaking in general terms here. I know there are companies that are fantastic. There are companies that are mostly struggling though. The answer to the question, why has B2B marketing become so vanilla, so ineffective in some methods, I guess, and in the main, pursuing visibility over real, tangible company growth benefit? So I've been looking for this answer for about 5 years, as I said, and I think I finally landed on something that kind of makes sense to me. And we can start it as a conversation. I'm not saying this is dyed in the wool. This is just a concept. So this is based on a year's worth of research and cross-sector kind of validation. Marketing is, and always was, about creating demand for something, right? Creating demand. Over the 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever, I feel that in the B2B space, particularly in large PLCs, that link to demand creation has weakened, and it's weakened and weakened and weakened. And that's based on research and real sort of validation. I often find when I meet marketing teams from various sized organizations, whether they're smaller SMEs or PLCs, that the correct starting position is often missed. So what I found this year is through painstaking research and validation is, and I came across this it was like the crystal, as something that I had maybe looked past in my years in sales and in marketing, that it all starts, and I'm just going to pose this as a conversational topic, it all starts with the organization's value proposition. Everything should come from there. So I've run these models and it's starting to make sense. Get the value proposition right, and all your messaging, your website, your PR, your email campaigns, your social media content is right and tight. Networks understand you, markets get it, sectors get it, and more importantly, you're speaking to your lovely clients, you're speaking in their language. So that value proposition must speak to your client base. It needs to be effective. It must be absolutely deeply rooted in an understanding of the client's needs, likes, dislikes, problems, your sector's issues, throughout a thorough understanding of who and what you're up against to remain unique and relevant and attractive. Often we meet marketing professionals who've done none of this. They've come in and joined organizations, been stuck in marketing. The first thing they ask for is, where's the image files and where do we produce our content? And they start producing content. And I've met marketing professionals, been with companies for 5 years, that have never met a client, that have never done anything more in a sector other than going to a show and, you know, being at a show for a week and picking up some brochures and stuff like that. So they've got no real clue. And I'm speaking in general terms here. I know there are wonderful marketing people out there in organizations, but in a general sense, marketers these days have no clue of what their organization's clients' needs, likes, dislikes, problems, the sector issues, and that thorough understanding of who and what they are up against in the markets to remain relevant, unique, and attractive. They've never been to a client meeting. They've created some competitor-based analysis that they put into a board pack, probably built on ChatGPT, because who are my competitors? This is my website. Who competes against me? They'll create these SWOT analysis, but do they really mean anything? But do they really understand what's happening? So what happens when they go about to generate content? It's homogenized, sterilized to the point where you could remove the logo from it, put another logo on it, and you couldn't tell it was their company. And I don't think they could either. So marketing teams, in my opinion, should know more about the organization's needs, problems, and issues. They should know more about the issues facing the sector than anyone else in the organization, I believe. I honestly do. I mean, you know, there are probably company leaders out there, MDs, CEOs, and C-suite that disagree, but I think this needs to be the year where marketing teams get back on top. It used to be that marketing ruled the world. Marketing was the place that you went to for information about the markets that your company worked in. Now, in the main, they're becoming people who organize events, create brochures, and just do stuff. Just do stuff. Why are you doing that? I don't know. We just do it. It's good for visibility. If I ever hire another person in a marketing role, I'm going to make sure, and this has been the revelation this year, that they're going to do 6 months before they do any content creation to understand our clients, their needs, what they're all about, understand the sector, and then come back and make content that actually resonates with that center that creates demand. I shall shut up now. That's my learning.
That's Eric taking a stand, and I like it. I think this is really interesting. I'd love to go to you, Marie-France, because from a personal branding point of view, it's kind of like the most simplistic version of that, right? Like you've got your alignment with yourself, and that's really all you have to align with. And then once you get into this organizational perspective, there's more dimension that happens there. But I also feel like this really has to be intentional from the beginning in terms of looking for these things. So what are some of the things that you see that stop individual people from showing up this way, from showing up with their values leading the way, knowing why they're doing things instead of just doing things? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so from what I've learned basically this year and the year before is that more often than not, women I work with are afraid of, you know, they don't know where they stand, right? So there's a question of positioning. And positioning to me is not so much about differentiation. It's much more about having a clear message to people you work with, which is, if you're looking for that, this is what I do. But if you're looking for this is what they do, right? So it's about being positioning for me. It's about being very clear about what you're offering and what you put to the table. So if you're looking for this, yes, this is what I do. If you're looking for, you know, building a compelling personal brand that makes you stand out in your field, that makes you the leader in your industry, that's what I do. So we can work together. But then if you're looking for someone to help you with your, you know, speaking skills or your sales, you know, skills, I'm not doing that. So you can go over there, right? So positioning, that was one of the biggest realization this year and the year before.
Yeah. Well, and Paul, I'd love to. Hi, Lee. Hi, Lee snuck in. Lee is our resident AI expert, everyone. So now we can talk about AI.
Is Lee really here, or has he sent an avatar?
I don't know.
Right.
I'm sorry, Eric. I can't answer that question as I'm just an AI assistant.
You must ask the right question. Paul,
Sorry
I'd
I'm
love
late,
to-
everyone. Big apologies.
All good. This is
Well-
what makes the humans real, right?
That's right.
they're late.
Yeah, that's a good test for humanness, I think. Are you on time? Are you late?
Yeah.
I think I
You're
passed the
late.
human test.
You're
Yeah.
human. Okay, coming back to this idea of positioning, and so Eric was talking about like value propositions. Paul, I'd love to get your framing from this on a like belonging point of view, because I feel like some of the things that Eric talked about in terms of like, I'm just gonna plan an event and make a brochure and post on social media, like these are like very doing based, but I don't feel a lot in most of those things. And so when we're talking about things like value propositions, positioning statements, like what role does belonging play?
Well, we had a glitch there. So I'm going to actually bridge both Marie-France and Eric on this one. So belonging is really an interesting thing, because we can extend what we will feel and see in belonging, but the same thing happens. Our clients, our customers, they have to see us as theirs. And so from that standpoint, as opposed to like a value prop, I would run towards doing a strategic story. Because if you're knowing, and by the way, I love that you brought up, you don't get to do anything for 6 months. You just get to know your clients.
Just get to
We can fall in love with people in an instant. The chemistry will there, the neurochemistry will switch, but belonging takes time, and it takes I'll bring up the 3x3 for you, Tracy. It's you feel, own, and care for somebody in their successes, dreams, and failures, and they feel, own, and care for you in yours. And so this bi-directional relational space is where if I have my client, it's not just I have my client, it's I am their coach, I am their organizational design person, however that is. And so from that standpoint, it's the identity and place that I've chosen in my field of work to be. I got a book I'm going to finish. I have actually recommitted to it, had a bunch of hell for the last couple of years. And so now it's back to the book. But I've spent hours refining the title because there's an identity in that. And I was thinking of how you were talking about that positioning, Marie-France. And yeah, I want it to be in a space where it hits CEOs and leaders who want high performing organizations, but have the ability to say, I want to do that through belonging. And so I made this little title. It's my latest iteration, but I'll share it because it has to do with what's going on, which is belonging beats the carrot and stick. That's a workplace talk. Leveraging our brain's Team OS to drive performance and well-being. That's I think going to be the final title. But the whole point of this is, who am I willing and who am I wanting to actually have as my clients? More importantly, that will have the strategic advantage of looking at me helping them from a position of belonging in the neurobiology of it. So I'm constantly framing in that space. So when I think of that, using strategic story as creating the value, what sets them apart, what sets me apart in helping them. And then now I get to define that because I have a personal brand in that. So that's where I would say there's a real bridge there that comes from actual belonging. And if we get a chance, I won't do it now because we have other people here, to talk about self-belonging, which is where you will feel, own, and care for yourself in your successes, dreams, and failures, and how that'll translate into one bigger picture. But from now on, let's move on and open up some space for somebody else.
Like, this is the thing about all of the experts on the panel, folks, is that they can go deep on any of these things. We are scratching the surface today in a 1-hour call, but connect with all of them and have further conversations to go deeper. Okay, I wanted to come to you because from a data-driven marketing point of view, and I feel like probably for the last like 10 years for sure, we have been moving in this direction of more data, more data, more data. We've got more and more systems, therefore we have more and more data. One of the things that I find really interesting about that is there's a lot more third-party data. We're often using AI to generate representative data sets, but we're not, as Eric mentioning, like talking to the clients. So can you share with us what you've seen from a data-driven marketing point of view in terms of first-party data versus other data and how people can prioritize in the right direction?
Well, thank you for that question. I like really what Eric and the three-person Marie-France and Paul were saying, and I'm going to bridge on that to paraphrase Paul. I'm going to bridge on that. Data, whatever data it is, it's really to know the customer. The discovery phase, when you start with the customer, when you start having a conversation, I like what Eric says, 6 months is pretty expensive. I was talking with a CEO of a firm in Ottawa. They call Godspeed. And this is pretty beautiful, and it totally envision and encapsulate the vision here about what do you do with data? What is the meaning of data in this age? And so what they do is they take whatever time. It's a lengthy and costly process. They take whatever time to catch the soul of a brand, and they do a book, like a physical book, which encapsulate the soul of the brand. And now when we have to create, we're partnered with them, when we have to create a data-driven data or growth initiative, we start from that book, which have all the data and all the essential, the word is really meaningful here, essential data about that specific company captures the soul. And with that data, you can articulate anything. Either it's a growth plan or marketing strategy, data-driven campaigns. Let's give back the place of the data. That type of data is the most valuable data right now in the market. It goes with what you guys were saying. So what I found is, and this is sad to hear, well, 98% of the company don't even go through that process. Like he said, they create brochures, they create campaigns, they create growth strategy, and you have some result or certain result, but it's not something that really. And at one point, sometimes they go so far that they're not even aligned with the brand. Oh, they're generating revenue like there's no tomorrow. Oh yeah, I mean, they're breaking records.
Slaying it.
It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean nothing at the end because they're not going to capitalize on that. It's only cyclical. So yes, that would be my my answer. I don't, Tracy. I hope that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because, again, on an ongoing basis, there's more potential data that can be collected, right? Consumers are sharing more and more of their data online, which means you can get all of these sources of things. But even like, I love what you said, I care about like data that captures the soul of the company. Like, is that when we're looking for data, and for anyone who is watching live, if you have done any kind of market research or any other kind of data collection, and you ask yourself in a very serious way, is this data that captures the soul of my company? I would love to ask that to my clients. I'm probably going to take it away and ask them that, because this is the thing, right? There's lots that we can do from a marketing perspective, but what are the things we're doing that are meaningful? And honestly, I think this like rolls right into AI, because the AI conversation, specifically in marketing, has mostly to date been about offloading people, right? So people are using it to help generate content. They are creating job descriptions and things like that with it. It has many more capabilities, which again, Lee could go like very deeply into. But Lee, where do you see this? We're talking about like human values and the soul of a company. What role does
Yeah.
AI play here?
Well, I mean, if you play it right, it could have a very central role. And I wonder if everyone or anyone here has seen that thing going around on the internet where people are asking ChatGPT, based on everything you know about me, create an image that you think captures my essence. So people have been doing that, and they've been pretty surprised at the types of images that ChatGPT creates, right? So, okay, that's an interesting exercise. Now, let's be a company. Let's have a whole, lake of data. Let's feed one of these models with, our branding guidelines, our mission statement, our product roadmap, whatever types of things you can feed it, and then ask it that same type of question. As a brand, create an image of what you think encapsulates this brand. And I think it would be a very interesting exercise to go through. It would certainly be the central spoke in a mood board or a sort of process of discovery for helping to define what you are as a brand, as a product, what you mean to the market, and then you can iterate from there. Because I mean, one thing that these things are really great at is providing this sort of objective kind of perspective on things, and especially using as much data as you can throw at it and putting that together, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing, and I think it also helps in the world of marketing, because let's be realistic here. There's lots of marketers in the world, and not every marketer is marketing sexy, exciting brands. In fact, the world goes around in the world of marketing from everyone who has brands that are maybe exciting, but also pretty boring. But that doesn't mean you have to sort of give up and go, well, this is boring. We'll market and we'll partner with trade organizations and we'll make sure that we update for our user groups. And I mean, no, like there is an opportunity to find something inspiring and interesting about what you mean to an audience, right? And so I think that type of creative, out of the box sort of thinking, I just came up with that. If you guys want to use that, go ahead and do that. But here's the type of things that unlock there, right? Like this is the opportunity that you can have to really view.
I might have a fun example of that, Lee.
Oh, great.
So in my former company, this is some real boring stuff. We created software that kept track of cellular telephone companies, all of their infrastructure assets that make the cell phones work. Millions and millions of assets. Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. Now it's even international with Airtel in India, which is the second largest wireless carrier. It's crazy stuff. Boring as heck.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and I will put a little belonging spin on this for you, Tracy. I remember we were sitting there talking, and it all came down to how do you keep track of millions of assets? And we ended up using cellular technology. Duh. And how do you make it better, faster, easier? And that's really all it was, because we had a whole bunch of people's lives that were dependent upon trying to figure out how you do this, because the rapid need to move faster. And now look what AI has done to us. Like something, a technology bump, which would take 2 years, might be 3 to 4 months now or less. But what we're helping are people to go to that, back to that individual side, the soul of it, as you brought up there, I care. You getting that data of what is, and I remember talking to my co-VPs who in this space, what do they really want? Well, I want my company to be this. Actually, that's not what they wanted. What they wanted was to do well, maybe get promoted to the next level, maybe to be able to get this stuff done so they could get off work in time to go see their kids play. So there's capturing that data and what we need for their story, but then, and of course, not to do it invasively, to know about the person by chatting to them outright, talking to them to find out what that is, so that our service in the work we're doing is actually touching the people in the companies that they're trying to do stuff for the world. So using that model, like I've done it in AI modeling, to say what would actually matter for a CEO to get higher performance, and they've tried everything else, but they haven't touched on belonging. Why would they even give a shit about it? And let it tell me what CEOs might be looking for that would relate to belonging and performance. By the way, doing that with belonging and well-being, not much traction, which is a shame. But
Yes.
using the tool
Not
for
much
that,
traction yet.
but
Right.
using the tool that way, it's kind of illuminating.
Well, and I think this also like brings something up for me, because like Eric, where you started this conversation was that like companies really need to be clear on these things, but there's a lot of companies that are not very clear. And so if you take all of this content that's been created off that unclarity and feed it into AI to create this image of you, then theoretically you could get an image that's very different than what you actually are. And then what?
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And so I think there's the image being a bit of a problem, but there's also the internal communications and external communications just being a total big ball of messy, woolly spaghetti. So, working with large organizations that have that haven't really centered on what is our value in the world and what is the message that we put out there, what is the value proposition. I still think that is the center point. And I think all of the content that we produce, all the stories that we craft that we're putting out there, and fundamentally all of our messaging that we put out there, if we get into a mode where we've trained the organization, communicated to the organization, this is our value proposition, we've refined it, we've worked on it, we've sat as a team, we haven't just called in an external marketing company to create a value proposition for us that sounds great and it's the kind of thing that makes us feel good. Actually, it doesn't need to make us feel good. It just needs to speak the right message to our clients. And if we get that right, everything folds out of that. We can create, what is editorial? What is social media content? It's all stories, right? So if we can get that center story, that headline story, this is why we do what we do. This is how we do it. This is what we're all about. This is the value we add to the world. And then we create 2 years, 3 years worth of messaging, content, editorial, PR, and we stick to that. Your network's going to get it. The algorithms are going to get it. And the digital platforms are eventually going to get it, because not only are we doing all that digitally, but every time someone, a young engineer from our company goes to a networking event and picks up some canapes and some rubbish red wine and stands there and someone says, what is it that you guys do? The message is going to be clear. It's going to be right. If one of our sales engineers goes in to see a client to do a pitch, that pitch is going to be absolutely resonating perfectly with our value proposition, our messaging. It's all going to be tight and people are going to get it because we put time into it. We invested, and it's just speaking the right words that mean something, that are sticking to the limbic part of the brain.
Yeah.
So let me open this up to the room, because I feel like what you just said, Eric, what you mentioned before about like someone coming on board and like learning the customers, learning the industry for like 6 months before they create anything. This is all like an investment in doing what matters, the strategic components. And I would say, again, I don't want to blame AI, and Lee will probably stand up for the AI, so hit it if you want to.
Maybe not.
But the point is, like, we've been offloading so many of these things, and the trade is a higher volume of tactical activities that aren't related to any kind of this, like, shall we call it a higher purpose of the organization, in terms of, and not just, yes, why, but also like, what are we doing here? Are we trying to drive revenue? Are we trying to, like, what do we do as marketers? Do we actually just let the
Yeah, yeah,
If they find out, they'll fire us.
yeah. Depends on what the retainer looks like.
Yeah. Well, and like this is a pattern I am seeing, is that more and more we are focusing on using the tools that are being created to do a higher volume of things, and we're trading our time to do a higher volume of things instead of those high value investments into the strategic story, value proposition, whatever we want to call it. We're not making that investment there. So
Tracy Morrison, have you just said that if we get this right, we could be spending less money and wasting less time and actually creating more growth?
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout it. Because I get it, right? It is a time investment, Eric. Like all of the things you just described, it takes time to accomplish that clarity and to get the practice and get embedded into the market and like practice and iterate and do all of those things. But when you have that North Star in your sights, you're like, this is what we do here. And I can't help but come back to the story about NASA, right? Where the tour group asked the janitor, what do you do here? And he's like, we're putting a man on the moon.
Yeah.
Like we all know what we're doing. And like, if you're a marketing coordinator and you are watching this show and you go to work and you just write blog posts and you have no understanding of what that blog post is supposed to do for the organization, we're missing the point.
Yeah.
And they should maybe and your leadership should have a conversation with one of the people in this room.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because from the AI perspective, there are basically like 3 use cases right now that AI is actually any good at. One is code assistant, the one is RAG, where you can talk to your data, which is highly useful for enterprises and companies of all sizes. They do that. It's great. And the other one, the third one, is content creation. And like, look, I guess if you're not using AI to at least assist in your content creation, you're not going to output the same volume as somebody else. However, what I hope and what I have been hoping for is that AI would take on the more tedious, frustrating, annoying components of our work and free us up to do the more creative things. Because if stories are what's important, human stories matter. AI written stories do not. They're disingenuous. There's no author associated with them unless the author, if you say, oh, this was written by Claude. I have a friend of mine, Matthew David Charles is his name, and he's in comms and PR. And it is the one of the pleasures of my day to sit and read his writing. His writing is human. It is just economical, but full of personality and insights. And I mean, my hope is that people don't lose that ability or lose that drive to hone those important skills, because, we're talking about stories, and that sounds like a very marketing niche type of thing, but let's be clear. Humanity is what we are because of stories, because of the oral tradition of passing down stories. Since before we could write words down, stories have been exactly how we have been motivated to survive and to be the successful sort of creature that we are. And so losing that and offloading that piece is, I think, a big mistake. And hopefully, like many people say, it's just a new tool to allow better scale and things like that. I hope so. But what I'm seeing a lot of is people going, hey, write me a blog post about this and this and this. And
Lee, I started by this by saying that this whole, the missing link, the missing piece, to use Paul's phrase, the missing bridge, where marketing weren't in a great place, and I'm speaking in very general terms, before AI. They weren't in a great place before AI, and now they've got an even easier slack off that they can do, because they can just so if I go into a room of marketing people or I give a talk or something and ask who's using AI in this room, who's used AI in the last 24 hours, all the hands shoot up.
Mhm.
Mainly it's the marketing team, and they all proudly say, yeah, to help us create content. You look at
Right.
the content and it's just this homogenized, I mean, an even more homogenized, sanitized, dehumanized version of what it was before when it wasn't very good.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's
We can put out crap, but we can do it so much quicker.
right. It's like there's a lot of crap, but look how much of it there is.
I know, it's
You know,
brilliant. It's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. It's something that I worry a little bit about. You know, I think the passion of telling the story is something that is, it seems to be a very human thing. I'm not going to say it's uniquely human because I'm not sure that other organisms don't do that, and whales and all kinds of animals don't do that, but we do it. We do it
Yep.
really well. It's kind of our thing. It's kind of what makes us amazing. You know, art, film, music, books, poetry, performance, theater, dance. It's stories. It's all stories. It is what we are. And originality can only be a human kind of thing right now when it comes to writing and telling stories. Everything else is going to be a sort of remix if it's AI generated. Human beings can do truly novel things because we can talk about our individual experiences. AI models don't have an individual experience, and so they can't convincingly tell a story. There's no way to connect with that individualistic kind of component that's so important for storytelling. Marketers should be obsessed with storytelling, and they should be very protective of that process and that practice and of honing that. And don't get sloppy. I know there's a lot of market pressure to use AI, but like, be very jealous of your writing and of your content that you create and your ability to express yourself. Because if you don't, like, marketers aren't going to really exist much longer. So
Lee, what I love where you went with that is the whole aspect of story. We don't belong without story. And when one of my old marketing guys I worked with, Brian, I loved him to death because he would focus on the story of the customer and how the story of the company could join the customer story in a way that the customer or client could then see themselves getting to a much better place. And that only happens when human beings actually make connections as opposed to rely on mathematical algorithms for giving us the highest probability of a token to come through and create content. That's an AI thing, by the way, for the listeners out there. That's actually what happens. But it's the story space. And where I think this is what's marvelous, and even being able to sit in this space with you all, is when we're doing this and we start making actual connection, our belonging neural circuits, I'm going to call them that way. We have mirror neurons. We have responses that actually trigger and create oxytocin and serotonin. And in that, we start to enter each other's stories, because that's theory of mind stuff. But I hear your story, you hear mine, and then we start forming an our story. And I think that that's the space that if we do that between even companies, like my former company has a product called SiteHound, and they're creating an our story. That our story goes with their customers, so the customers then become an extended our story. But that only happens in that sharing of each other's story. And it's like crazy because the brain does this at 11 million bits per second and can tell when something's bogus and not genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just share something? I love how, if AI is used, and I'm not going to say properly, because who am I to say properly, but I love when it's used in conjunction with, if the core of our being as an organization is telling stories that stick and help us grow, if that's at the center, then using AI should be something that helps us do that. And we did an exercise with an organization. We did it live in the room. I was sweating a little bit. One of their ambitions in 2025, probably about summertime, is to make an early entrance break into the Gulf of Mexico energy market offshore. Mostly oil and gas, but we're saying energy because you're not allowed to say oil and gas anymore, but it is oil and gas.
You're banned. You're banned.
You're banned. Get out.
Yeah,
Get
out of here.
And we really quickly said, so we're not going to take away from the storytelling thing because that's the core of what we are. Let's quickly train up language processor and what we're all about. We'll put our website on there, our mission statement, our value statement, and we'll say, right, in line with the top 5 operators, we'll just do the top 5 right now. Break down the biggest issues that these companies face into something bite-sized and manageable for us, which is unique across all of those 5 operators. And it came up with a list of 10 things. Right, let's take those 10 things and let's use our storytelling power to tell stories about them that are real, that are true, and that will really add value to those clients. Guess what's happening now? Those companies, that company, from a series of putting out blogs and some social media posts on LinkedIn and other, are now in conversations with those companies, and they never contacted them. Those companies contacted them because we're speaking the same language and we wrote stories about the things that matter.
And like, Marie-France, I would love to hear this because, I mean, you're all about creating that magnetism between people, and I'm sure there's a big role of story in that. So, what are your thoughts in this storytelling conversation?
Well, that's interesting because storytelling, it's sometimes overrated to me. I feel like at least wrong storytelling. What I mean by that is that I see women, like especially coaches and therapists, using their story. Like they're using storytelling to promote themselves. So they share their story. You know, when I was 12, you know, I broke my feet and then blah, 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 blah. And people are not interested in that. What they are interested in, it's the part of your story that appeals to their emotion, that appeals to their needs. And they want to see, they want to understand and feel that when you're telling that part of your story, you are actually thinking about them, thinking about the problem that you're going to you're going to solve for them. So I'll attach it to what you said previously, Paul, strategic storytelling, right? It's not about telling me story. People don't, I mean, they don't care about that. They don't care if you know, you break your foot when you were 12 and then blah, 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 blah. They don't want to see the whole story, right? They want to see that specific part that appeals to their emotion. And then they're going to say, oh yeah, I want to start working with that person because I can feel that her story appeals to mine, right? And that's how you start building, you know, the confidence that you need and the trust that you need to start, you know, to move the conversation further and to hopefully get the sale.
Marie-Claire said I hope someone says a few words. I've written 5 words down there. Marie-Claire said trust. It's the first time we've heard trust.
Marie-France.
Sorry, not Marie-Claire. Marie-France said trust. So I'm ticking trust off. I wanted to get trust. That was good.
Yeah.
Marie-France, that what you're talking about is that the feels are actually what is going on. And that the funny aspect, and this is so overlooked because we keep thinking it's all about rational and all the little details, but 95% of our decisions are actually made in the feeling centers of the brain, not in the debated prefrontal cortex. That's just
in sales. That's a fundamental component. Is you need to understand and uncover pain, because people make purchasing decisions emotionally and they justify them logically afterwards, and you will try to fit logical reasons to justify your emotional triggers that actually motivated you, right? So, Marie-France, that's exactly it. Like somebody telling a self-serving story, I did this, I did that. Nobody, I mean, not nobody, but oftentimes that misses the point in what you're trying to do. What you're trying to really do is appeal to how that makes anyone and everyone generally connect with the results, and you know, everyone, a story only is a good story when it resolves, right? And so it's how does it resolve? Whether it's a brand, how do we resolve adding value or solve challenges or whatever, or how did my personal story impact my career choice so that now I can help you and your, like, it's that's very important. We, you know, we're very simple in our way to kind of want to organize around each other and ultimately kind of help each other. And you know, it's at a grand scale now, and we have businesses and buildings and money and all that. But honestly, people really connect at a deep fundamental level, and if the story doesn't hit that motivation just right, you know, who cares?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this comes back to what I've heard Paul say many times on this show and just to me many times, is the concept of this us story, like we story, our story. This is, I mean, I get this all of the time on my LinkedIn about section, and full disclosure, Eric helped me write it. Well, Eric prompted me to keep going deeper. Let's put it that way. But I talk about how, like, I didn't have one place to fit in when I was growing up. I did this, I did this, I did this. I wanted to do all of that. I like to do all of that. And the number of people who I connect with who are like, oh my gosh, I resonate so deeply with what you say in your about section. One, it's not that all people resonate with that, but the people whose story, the verbiage I always use is in alignment. When your story is in alignment with my story, I'm not convincing you of anything. I don't have to manipulate you. I don't have to persuade you. We just have decided to go somewhere together. And if we can decide to go somewhere together, like, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but we feel, own and care for each other's and our successes, dreams, and failures, right? Like, we are going somewhere together. And when I think about the power of that from a marketing perspective, like, you want to talk about having raving fans? Like, this is what goes into having a raving fan.
I love that. I love this idea of, you know, being aligned. So it's not so much about, you know, something that you want to get from your clients. It's something that you offer. And then if they find that they are aligned with what you're offering, then there is the connection, and then you can move forward. But it's not about, you know, I want to sell this and you want to get that, and so we need to make the sale.
And
I'm offering something, right?
Totally.
And if it resonates with you, if it appeals to you, to your emotion, then you're going to feel the need to, you know, move forward. So this idea of alignment is definitely a huge part of marketing. It has always been and will always be in the future. I mean, in the years to come. So.
And it's very difficult to get to that position, as Marie-France said, about alignment, and yourself, Tracy, by just posting technical data, you know, gigabytes, pressures, depths, volumes, you know, blah, 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 all of that. You know, this is the best processor. This is the deepest thing. This is the biggest thing. When you do that, you tend to get into a more competitive space, and you're forcing the clients into just basing it on pure price alone.
Right. You become a commodity.
You become a commodity. You're just the same as everyone else. Those guys have got the same pump that does the same pressures. How cheap are you?
And if they don't, they will. And then what is your value? You know, what is this valuable about you and unique if you're talking about all the features and things that your product has?
Yeah, exactly. Once you get into telling, I mean, one of the best, even if you are a Me Too in a very populated market, the one thing that's not Me Too about anyone else is your stories. Your stories are different to everyone. Even if you make the same pump as 10 other companies in your town and that's what you sell, your stories are different.
Definitely.
And I'd love to, because of course we're running out of time on the show, because we always run out of time on the show, which is why I encourage you guys to connect with each other and stay in the conversation. 5 guests. I know, but I want to call the diverse perspectives. Yeah. This is so good. So our in-house data-driven marketer here, joining us for the conversation today. What role can data play in understanding how well we're doing from a storytelling perspective? Because if we want to take some of what we've talked about today and say, okay, I'm coming out of this conversation with the peeps, I'm so pumped to do more storytelling. What role does data play in us understanding how effectively we're doing that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting for you to ask me that. I'd say, and I was like listening to what everybody was saying, And I'd say there's something that we see a trend right now. I don't know. I'm asking you guys if you've seen that. Most of right now, the data system or AI system using to populate the internet with a lot of stories are now integrating what they call a brand voice tone. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Mhm.
So based on that, I'd say that storytelling, like what I've seen that worked a lot, like that worked. Let's say I say no, that really connect like and is meaningful to people is they found their tone, and they also search and validate their customers base segment, like they say different type of customers, and they would find also what connect their story to these specific, let's say, demographic or specific groups. And then now they start to articulate message, and it's always a 10 on 10. It's always bullseyes because they actually don't really talk about the product, but they talk about how their story connect using that product or using that services. Or this is well, I use it. We're so related with that because X or Y factor. So data could really be used to drive these type of. If I may give an example, maybe. Let's say you try to create some for a coaching service, you try to create a type of a series of a coaching session there's going to be high ticket price, and like most of the people that are your customers base or people that you could really approach to attend these events. Most of the people, like there's billions of that. Like there's Tony Robbins, there's billions of that. These guys have been doing that for zillions of years, and they have massive reach. How do you differentiate yourself in that? Well, your unique story is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially if you are totally clear and unfiltered about it. Then you're going to resonate then you're going to attract the right not the right is not even the word I was. You're going to attract the people that resonate with them, and they see the value because they say, oh, we've been through the same struggle, we've been through the same thing, and so that's my take on that, if you want. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just mashed up what Marie-France said about trust and what ICARE said about being unfiltered into this idea of like, what does it look like for marketing to create trust unfiltered? And the answer to that is unique for every different organization. But the curious thing, and I'll be honest with you, and this is why I throw so many people on a show like this, even though we could actually talk for like 4 hours and still drop lots of golden nuggets. But the point is that when we're in conversation with people about these types of things, people who are knowledgeable about marketing, if we're trying to develop something in marketing or do something different in our marketing or implement our AI differently or incorporate belonging into our marketing initiatives, when you get into the conversation, it creates the opportunity for new ideas, shared value that didn't exist before, which I also believe AI can participate in if that's how you're trying to use AI. But when we do that, it creates a new way for us to look at marketing. And if you are watching this today and you happen to feel like maybe marketing wasn't doing what it could be doing for you in 2024, and you would like for it to do something different in 2025 and beyond, then get into a conversation with people. You might not be as excited about this concept of trust unfiltered as I am, but the point is that when you're in the conversation and you're picking up what you would pick up, just like ICARE said, there's stories that resonate with you, there's stories that don't resonate with you, and you kind of mash those up into what we would do. Then we're talking about that core alignment, the core clarity that all of these things come out of. And when you start with that, I believe we create a very empowering path forward from a marketing perspective. Um,
I heard a phrase recently that probably fits here. I don't know if you've heard this before. It's almost like they feel, own, and care.
I've heard that once or twice before.
I just made that up. I just made it up.
It's embedded in my psyche.
The question,
Thanks,
the
Paul
thing that
Harvey.
I heard so far is like you're not a candy bar. You can't please everyone. So even in candy bars, there's many stuff. So you have to find what type of candy bar you are and stick to that.
And the kind
Well,
of people who
and
don't
this-
like candy bars, and you don't want them anyway. Come on.
Right? The candy from Halloween is still sitting in my house. I'm not eating it. But again, and I think this is the interesting thing, right? We get that. I think everybody gets that, right? We all understand that there's room for many chocolate bars in the market, and there's diabetic chocolate. And
Wait, are there really many options of candy bars? That's what I'm really asking.
Paul has to go to it sounds like.
I would
But
love
like,
really-
the point is that like Kit Kat isn't competing directly with Rolo, right? If you want caramel in your thing, then you're probably not going to choose a Kit Kat. But Kit Kat's not trying to be Rolo; it's trying to just be Kit Kat. Right? You guys are hearing what my preferred chocolates are. But
I didn't know when we came on here we would go from volume proposition to Kit Kats and Rolos.
Hey, which candy bar
Although-
tribe are you part of? That's really what it came down to.
Okay, so if we're going to really voice our opinion here, I'm going to do a shout out to my friends at Jastic Chocolate in Sherwood Park, Alberta, because they make the best chocolate anywhere, and I've been to Switzerland.
That is such a plug.
So you're welcome.
So there's
and
a real, there's
they
a
didn't
cool
pay me a
comment. Hey Tracy, there's a cool comment by Peter in there about learn about people in business. They do for their favorite local shop. It's not just convenient; it's friendly. And to take that back to the kind of like the trust in that aspect and authenticity, I think there's a real measure here that comes into play, which is and Vanessa Van Edwards, she talks about this stuff in the neuroscience of it. Really cool, but warmth and competence. And we spend so much time in just the competent side and defining that as trust. And the difficulty there is it's mathematical and it's not relational, and then it doesn't touch the heart. Nobody says norm. Just that's for you, Peter, because it's, you know, that this is consistent or this has an achievable level. You do that though with somebody who comes into that space genuinely or authentically warm. That doesn't mean positive, smiley, happy. It means it could be completely connected. Seeing somebody's face and going, "Oh, damn, you had a tough day, didn't you?" That's warmth. And so I think the warmth plus that ability, that competence, that's what creates that point where somebody says, I want you, meaning the own part of feel, own, care, wherever that came from. But that warmth is part of the calculus. And I think that's, and I kind of want to go so much longer in this. I want to ask Lee. Lee, have you found a method to dive into AI stuff? And I guess iCare, you've been diving into it too. How do we find and calculate what somebody would really need from a warmth standpoint in the moment of actually choosing and wanting to choose you in the story we're giving them?
So you may not expect this from me, but here it is. I actually think that that AI is dangerous, especially when it comes to using it to devise ways to manipulate people. And as it becomes more and more capable and intelligent, you don't want this super intelligence being able to formulate the very best ways to manipulate human behavior. Now, that may not be all that serious for this conversation, but it's kind of what I've been talking about for the past few years about how we need to approach using tools like this. You know, if we want to operationalize nudging and priming people, we better just try and do that on our own, because AI is going to be so good at it that by the time we figure out what's happening, we may be manipulated all the way out of our own usefulness. You know, like not to put my sci-fi hat on, but you know, That's it. But from a
So
general
you've watched
standpoint,
Battlestar Galactica?
I have, yep, both the original seasons and the remake one. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, again, even if we're less efficient and maybe wrong some of the time, human beings should kind of trust their gut on how best to do that. And again, an AI model will synthesize what human values and goals and needs are back to us in a way that's like, reflecting back like a good therapist would or whatever.
A good
But, man.
mathematician. It is a probability algorithm that's mathematically derived.
Right, but it's also not very good at math. So, what do you do?
Let's not call it a mathematician. And Carrie, I'd love to hear your thoughts too. But one of the things when you ask that question, Paul, that comes up for me, because one of my go-to responses for my clients is, what would you do? And it's interesting to think about this as what does somebody need? I can't ever really know that, right? But I can extrapolate what I would do. So if my interpretation is that you need compassion in a moment, all of us on the panel might show compassion in a different way.
Yeah.
But what would I do to show compassion? And if I can answer that question, then I can do a thing.
Yeah, but that's really interesting, because from my experience, when I start a coaching journey with one of my clients, one of the first questions that I would ask is, how do you feel? It's not what do you need, it's how do you feel right now? We start the conversation like this. And more often than not, she would start telling me things about her feelings, how she feels right now when we're starting the journey. And then I have information on her intentions. And sometimes what happens is that she believed that she had some needs at the beginning of the journey, of the coaching journey. And then she quickly realized that it was all wrong. It wasn't about those needs. She has other intentions. So that's why I'm very attached to knowing how they feel and what are their intentions, rather than focusing on their needs. So it's all about.
I have a great case study on that I've been doing for 25 years. And I mean, it's right to the point. You guys maybe be familiar with a thing called DISC 2.0. It's kind of a blue, the yellow people, the talkative, the blue, they're more data. Well, that type of psychometric test.
Yeah. And
so we have a system that I've been using for 25 years that usually when we have customers that we know that we're going to take it's going to be a lengthy and long process. We'll be working with them for more than a year. We pass them through that system, especially the person that you're talking with. And we do a profile as an enterprise, as a group also, and as a team, right? So this way,
is that diff?
One of the things that it's really, really, really important in there is a one page that says how to interact with that person. Exactly what to say. Keep that line. Stay in that focus. It 28 questions. It spit out an 80-page report about that person. And it's to the point. I mean, this is to the dots. Sometimes the person they look at it and say, who else saw that? Because they don't want them people to know so much things about them, And so there's that page that you spit out. And also when you talk to, let's say, to accounting or anything, we have all these pages that says, this is the tone, the voice. This is what's important for them. And when you talk to them about that, because if you talk about something else, you lose them.
But also, I feel like this is the interesting thing of the interrelationships between these, and we're bringing this back to the hour, right? I remember having an employee, and she was needed the information, 2, needed time to process the information, but also I am me. I have my communication style. And so I it's especially from a marketing perspective, very difficult to go around and like change the way you interact with every single person. It's not scalable. It's not possible. So there's a relationship between the who am I talking to, but also the who am I, right? Which is a lot of what we've been talking about today is like, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I'm in this to do. There are other competitors. I had a boss once that always said, like, if you don't have competitors, you don't have a market. So it's good to have competitors. But I am me and you are you, and we make unique we. And you and someone else who does what I do also make a unique we. Which one of those do you like? Which one of those, as Marie-France says, feels good to you, right? Feels like it can take care of your feelings. Feels like it cares and owns for you, like feel own care. Which one feels like the one you want to participate in? Because I can guarantee every single human on the face of the planet is like, we're putting DISC into 4 categories, and I hate putting humans into categories. I think it's a waste of time. But like,
Still type A.
none of us, like no 2 people interact the same. And so like, this is our opportunity to create what that looks like. And we can be a like victim of it, or we can go create the uses that we want.
Yeah.
Okay, we could start a whole new conversation, but we're already 12 minutes over. So
I think we have,
All right.
I think we have already.
unfortunately, I'm going to cut us off for today.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, so all of this lovely group of people, you can find them on LinkedIn. You can also find them in other places, but go find them on LinkedIn. If you can't find them on LinkedIn and you're connected to me, ask me. I will get you connected with the peeps. But hopefully what we demonstrated for you all today is that there is much to review from a marketing point of view, from what happened in 2020. We just, I mean, like literally scratched the surface of information today. And I really encourage you, if there was anything that you heard that was in alignment with you, connect with the expert who was talking about it, have a conversation, dive deeper into it, spend some time, make an investment, as Eric said, into that conversation so you can figure out what is going to be meaningful for you. And that's not necessarily the same thing that's meaningful for your competitor or your neighbor or your friend or your partner or whoever. Or is it whomever? I don't know. I never know that one. But like, if it feels like it's relevant for you, it probably is. So allow yourself to dive into that more deeply to get to the core of what that means for you. And these are some great people to do that with. You guys, I'm sad because this is the last show. This is the last show of 2024. So we are signing off for the year. Thank you so much to all of you for joining.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy,
Peter,
for always
for
connecting
being
people and being amazing.
Oh yeah, second
I
that.
heard you guys.
Merry
Paul,
Christmas,
I really
everyone.
Paul, I really like your scientific approach.
Yeah, Paul has all of the brain science.
I'm a little nerd.
So if you're a
Yeah,
brain
I love
science
it. We
nerd,
should
connect with Paul.
circle back, actually.
All
Thank
right,
you.
my
Bye,
friends.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Wishing you all a beautiful festive season. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Same
Bye.
to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Till
Bye-bye.
2025, folks. Permission to do you. See you
Yeah.
all next year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.